what are some of the hardest to understand clauses that you frequently get questioned about when it comes to these contracts? Because a lot of these labels and a lot of these contracts had the same template that a lot of these people use for certain for certain types of deals that they give the artists. So what are the clauses that you frequently get questions about and that you have to clarify for other people?
Well, I find that the most complicated contracts in general are typically like major label record contracts or major music publishing contracts where the artist is probably getting a pretty hefty advance, but then they break down all the different royalties, how they're calculated from streaming, different uses in different countries, and there are just many more issues to take into account. While a more straightforward record contract with a more up-and-coming artist where there's not necessarily a lot of money at stake will probably just be a 50-50 profit split of just whatever they end up making.
Would a 50-50 profit split be more common with a smaller label and an artist rather than because I'm assuming that what you're talking about with the major label contract is probably a 360 deal that you would have to decipher through.
Mm-hmm. Not necessarily a 360 deal, but similarly, just when they're investing just so much money, often 5 figures, maybe 6 figures in an artist in one of these deals, it makes sense for them economically just to go through and just make sure that they are just covering their asses when they're giving an artist $100,000. But if you're just working with if it's an up-and-coming label working with an up-and-coming artist, they just may not care as much because it's just about getting the experience, getting the music out there, and everyone's just doing their best job, and they probably won't be able to lose money in that.
I mean, and it's crazy how many people don't know this. I think people are starting to wake up now, but so many people don't understand that a record label advance is literally just a loan that the label gives you, and you have to pay all that money back. I have a question regarding that too, because I've had people ask me this, and I kind of want to know. So let's say that you get an $100,000 advance, and you only make $10,000 of that advance back, and then you get dropped from your label. Do you legally now owe them $90,000 even though you got dropped from their label, or does that debt get wiped off as soon as you're not affiliated with the label anymore?
And that's a good question. So typically, I can't really foresee a label straight up dropping an artist when they have so much money at stake unless there's outstanding circumstances or outside circumstances. But say you get signed by a label for $100,000 advance, and you start putting out all the records that you have to put out 3 albums. You put out all 3 albums, and you are close to recouping. You're not getting out of that contract until you pay back the rest of the money, until the company gets paid back the $100K.
Really? Okay, so it's a more likely scenario that instead of you owing money, they would just wait until your music recoups it and then drop you once it's at absolute zero.
Right. Exactly.
Okay, yeah, I didn't know that. I thought that they would drop you in debt, and then you'd have debt that you'd have to pay. That'd be outstanding debt, even though you're not affiliated with them.
Mm-hmm. I mean, there may be stories of that from the 2000s when just the deals were enormous and these companies were just getting money. So I believe it.
It's kind of crazy how the deals from back in the day were so much different than now, because people were way more generous back in the day. Because you were seeing deals that were $5-6 million advance deals with people. Now, if it's a 6-figure, $100,000 plus deal, that's a big deal now.
Right.
What is the average when it comes to these contracts and these advance contracts? What is the average kind of advance that you're seeing artists get when they get if they have a decent buzz and they're getting signed? What is the average amount that these labels are actually offering these people?
And that's something that I've actually been very surprised about now that I've been able to be a part of a lot of different deals. Is funny enough, I can't really get a sense of it because you see a lot of up and coming artists, and as we said, money people are more tight with their labels are tighter with their money these days. But yet I see in the more pop space or the hip hop space, a lot of artists are getting 5-6 figure advances who you may not even heard of because they had one big placement. It seems to have a lot to do with hype, to be honest.
Really? Yeah, I've debated that when it comes to the numbers and how many people are getting signed just because of the numbers on YouTube and and on SoundCloud rather than the actual ability to make something back over the long term.
Exactly. Right. So it may not even be the artist's best interest to sign a $100,000 deal based on their one song, because who knows if they have more songs, will have any chance of recouping and ever getting out of that deal.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a question that not a lot of people think about.
Exactly. So when it comes to these kind of contracts that you see with major label deals, and let's say it'll have like a term, like a 2-3 year term, is there any, and I mean any, loophole that would ever really get you out of that?
No, I guess I would say in general, like contract. It's really hard to get out of a contract on a technicality as much as TV made us all think that's the case. But it pretty much has to do with just getting the company repaid their money.
Really?
So even if it's a 2-3 year term, that same contract will probably have language that says it's whichever happens later, the end of the 2 year term, or the company getting paid back all the money.
Wait a minute. So what? So you're basically saying that if at the end of the 2 year term they haven't paid it back, they're gonna make you stay under the contract until it gets paid back?
Right, under the language of the contract.
Wow. There's a lot of people that probably don't even know that. So pretty much that term is more of a loosely based thing. It's basically if you ain't making enough money to repay it, you under contract still.
Yep.
And we're not gonna let you go until it gets paid.
Yes, very few artists are getting all their advances recouped within the 2 year term before the end of the 2 year term.
So is there anything else about the contracts that when you look at them that would signal to you as a red flag that would cause you to maybe call for a revision, or maybe tell the artist, hey, this is something that you really need to think about when you're signing this, because this and this and this is what they're saying?
As far as label deals, I'd say the biggest red flag is just the number one most important issue is the ownership of the rights. Is the artist giving all their rights in the music to the label? Because what if the artist can get the music placed in the commercial on his own? He's not allowed to do that if the label has all the rights. So I've found that a lot of artists also don't realize the implications of not having the rights until it's too late.
What are some of the implications of not having the rights to your music?
It's basically that you're not allowed to, basically you don't have control over it. You can't hustle it for other opportunities. But that's the biggest downside, is you can't hustle it for other opportunities. So who knows how much money you're leaving on the table, because do you know if these labels are really working as hard as they can on your behalf, or are you just sitting there on the bottom of the list of the roster?
Yeah. I mean, I guess you never know until it's too late in that situation.
Right. So you should be wary of signing over your rights until you're with a label or working with people that you really trust and you know that they're going to work the hardest on your behalf.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's also why you're starting to see a lot of people go totally independent, or they're just starting their own labels now and they're getting distribution deals.
Right. I agree with that completely. They want to keep the control. That's the biggest thing.
So how does a distribution deal differ from a 360 deal? Because it sounds a lot like a 360 deal that you would get offered, but it's different. Like, it's a different kind of a thing.
Well, I used to start off with the 360 deals when the label is giving you an advance for you to record and put out albums, but they get paid back from a piece of all of your different revenue streams, whether that's merchandise, whether or not that had anything to do with it, whether that's your shows, sponsorships, everything. So after the 360 deal, a typical record deal still is going to take ownership over the music, like we discussed. They're going to pay you, but the way they get paid back is just more limited to things having to do with the actual music. But that also includes control over it, and hustling it for other opportunities. But then a distribution deal doesn't give the label those same rights of control. They just handle certain services for the artist, whether that's printing up physical copies and distributing those to stores, whether that's putting a marketing push behind it online, and they just get a cut of of the money that the music generates, but it's probably a smaller cut and they don't get those same rights of control.
Okay, so a distribution deal, you keep more of the rights to your music.
Right. Correct.
Okay. All right. I kind of wanted to decipher that because, you don't really know. Like, if they look at a lot of these contracts look kind of the same and sound kind of the same. They just have one or two things that are tweaked differently.
Right.